Hey guys, CES is now in the books and it has been for a few days now, so let's take a look back at some of the highlights coming out of CES 2017. Okay guys, so CES, like I already said, is in the books as of, I believe, Sunday the 8th. There's still videos all over YouTube still trickling out from that, but I want to go ahead and cover the highlights from a news perspective of some of the coolest tech or some of the most consumer friendly tech that's going to come out in the next year or so, and possibly not in some cases. And we'll talk about that. Specifically there, I'm talking more about the Razer 3-screen laptop. That may be farther down the road, but here's some of the cool tech that I saw from this year's CES through YouTube, news sites, all that sort of thing. First up is actually Project Valerie from Razer, and in case you were living in a hole over the past week, this is a crazy laptop based on their Razer Blade Pro, but essentially what they did is they took that laptop and added 2 more screens, so it has a total of 3 screens, all of which are 4K, all driven by a GTX 1080 from NVIDIA. Some cool things about this from a thought perspective is first of all, this thing is huge. There are large displays in the first place, and then they retract into the middle so that you can close the laptop like any normal laptop. But obviously that creates an extremely thick laptop, and it's extremely heavy. On the other hand, from a portability standpoint, if you look at this as a laptop you could take to, it'd be kind of funny to see it, but at a coffee shop, you could put it in a bag, you could tote it around with you, you could plug it in at the coffee shop, and you could, I believe it was actually, or the final product would be motorized, where you could hit the button and the screens would automatically slide out from the middle, and you would have 3 4K displays. From a productivity standpoint, and this is sort of where this laptop gets attractive, is you could have somebody working at work with this laptop with the full 4K displays, and they could legitimately put it up into a computer bag or backpack or whatever the case is, tote it out to their cars, take it home with them at night, and work from home over the weekends or at night or whatever the case may be. A lot of YouTubers, for example, that went to CES, this would be a really attractive laptop to keep in their hotel rooms while they edit videos at night and days between shows like CES or other trade shows throughout the year. Now, this wasn't without any sort of heartbreak for Razer, as it was reported towards the end of the show that Razer's prototype laptops were, stolen from their CES suite. So I believe it was 2 laptops that were stolen, but they are extremely expensive. And not only that, I think Razer is more concerned with competitors getting their hands on them. The next cool piece of consumer tech comes by way of LG and their insane OLED TV series, the W series. But the thing is, it is a 3.85 millimeter TV, and the way that they engineered this is actually really cool. They took the screen and separated it from the rest of the guts of the TV. What that allowed them to do was make the actual display panel incredibly thin, and you can easily mount it then on a wall, and it would blend right into that wall. And then they took the guts and put the guts of the TV down in a sound bar, and that allows them to still power the device how they need to be able to, as well as keeping the attractiveness of an extremely low profile display. Now, if you look down here in this particular article, you'll notice that it's compared to a key on a wall, and that key is probably about half as wide as the display itself, to the point where if you're standing across the room, or really not standing beside the TV, if you're standing in any way in front of it, you're just simply not going to see it on the wall. The plans are for LG to release the 65-inch version of this TV in March for $8,000. So obviously it doesn't come cheap, but this is a consumer product, and if somebody is in the market for an extremely high-end, incredibly gorgeous display, which would also be a great talking point when you have friends, family, or whatever over, then this is your ticket for that. Now I want to move into a couple things that are more gaming geared. The first of which is the HTC Vive releasing a series of peripherals officially licensed for their Vive VR headset. And the most exciting one of those is the TP-Cast wireless adapter. And what that allows you to do is take the HTC Vive and separate it from the PC that has to be driving it. Now, we've seen a couple other sort of ideas floating around. For example, there's one, I think it may have been from Zotac, I could be completely wrong on that. There is a backpack PC that's battery powered, and the batteries are hot swappable because there's 2 of them in there. And this adapter would essentially eliminate the need to really do that at all. And I think it's really attractive, obviously, for HTC Vive owners, because it's not an HTC Vive 2, it's an adapter for the existing HTC Vive, and that's a really big deal. The hands-on reviews of it at CES have been very mixed. On one hand, what I've read is that it is extremely good while it's working properly. But the other hand is apparently if you hit the adapter or bump it or jar it in any meaningful way, the game will cut out briefly. And that's really a problem when you have a VR headset, because those types of little stutters or even it just dropping out for a second or two are really going to remove you from the experience of VR. So it's a great idea, and I'm really, really curious to see what reviewers say about it when they actually get their hands on the tech. But for now, it may be a very alpha-like product where it's a great idea, not quite executed perfectly yet, but it does make me excited for VR going forward, because it looks like at least the technology for taking VR wireless is, if not here now, it's very, very close, and that's extremely exciting for anybody that's starting to think about getting into VR. The last thing I want to highlight here from CES is from AMD, and AMD was probably the, at least from the gaming and computer and really techie side of things, AMD was the real show stealer this year, because they were demoing some exciting Vega demos along with Ryzen. I want to talk about Ryzen, even though I just got done doing a video that was all about Ryzen, and you can check that video out over my head in the YouTube card. I'll link that up. But essentially, they brought us some more information about Ryzen, the AM4 platform, the chipsets, and what we can expect from those things. The first graph from this article from PC World, this is just a graph that's telling us all about the AMD chipsets, which chipsets support things like overclocking, which chipsets have more PCIe lanes, that sort of thing. So this is a good reference point for if you're starting to think about building a Ryzen-based system here in the next few months once it actually launches. This chart is a really good thing to look at to sort of match up where your needs are and what chipsets you're going to want to go after, because obviously the enthusiast chipset motherboards are going to be more expensive, whereas your lower end, like your A320 chipset, is going to be much cheaper. This second chart, also from PC World, same article, shows us sort of the lineup expectation of the Ryzen-based CPUs and the Ryzen-based APUs. And the final piece of the AMD puzzle, at least in terms of the AM4 motherboard and the AM4 socket, rather, is that it is being supported through 2020, and AMD has talked about already that they're waiting to replace it for things like DDR5 and the next generation of PCIe. One of the reasons that AMD is able to do this is because their Ryzen-based processors are actually more like SoCs or systems on chips, which means a lot of that functionality that used to be located elsewhere on the motherboards and within those chipsets is actually all going to be locally handled on the processor and on the processor package. If you need to upgrade something, or AMD rather needs to upgrade something, they can do that with the release of a processor and don't necessarily have to completely replace the socket that it's running in. By supporting AM4 through 2020, AMD is eliminating that extra cost to a lot of builders, and that gets a big thumbs up from anybody that's ever built a computer. So that's it from CES 2017. Those are the stories that I thought were most interesting as I watched and read coverage of CES. But you may be different. And if you are, please leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought was the coolest tech coming out of CES 2017. If you like this type of video, go ahead and give me a like down below. Also, sharing and subscribing helps me out a whole lot. I'm Shane with Hoosier Hardware. I'll see you in the next video.